Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 6. The complicers will talk about poverty alleviation, contribution of zakat and sedekah. First and foremost, what is zakat and sedekah? Zakat is the fourth pillar of Islam, and the word zakat is derived from root word zakah, which literally meaning increase and purification, as stated in Surah At-Taubah verse 103. Based on Global Sedekah Web, sedekah is to spend from his or her possessions and abilities in the way of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and the word sedekah is derived from the Arabic word siddiq. So, how do zakat and sedekah differ? Zakat is one of 5 fundamental concepts in Islam. This makes it a compulsory action, and therefore all Muslims must give zakat, provided they meet certain conditions, while sedekah is an intended and continuous action of uprightness which everyone has to carry out no matter what their social status is. World Bank addressed that the global extreme poverty rate has fallen from 10.1% to 9.2% in 2017. It is such a very progressive improvement. Unfortunately, coronavirus has affected the world poverty line. The global extreme poverty rate is expected to rise for the first time in 2 decades as the pandemic has disrupted economic development to keep growing, which has slowed the poverty reduction progress. In 2019, the states in Malaysia who are facing the absolute poverty rate are Sabah 9.5%, Kelantan 12.4%, Sarawak 9%, Kedah 8.8%, Perak 7.3%, and Terengganu 6.1%. So, in this situation, zakat and sedekah will play a very important role to lighten society's burden. Zakat will be distributed to the eligible people fairly based on their needs, while sedekah that has been contributed to the government or non-government body will also be allocated to needy people equally. This discussion will go through zakat and sedekah thoroughly on how contribution of zakat and sedekah can alleviate poverty.
Now, I'm going to explain the issue of poverty in Malaysia. The issue of poverty in Malaysia still rise and continues until this day, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic occurred in the country. During the pandemic, Malaysia has suffered economic damage. For example, the country facing an economic recession, an increased unemployment rate, and more businesses have lost and shut down. This pandemic also has been extremely tough on the poor and the vulnerable. According to Moneycompass website, Malaysia has been classified as highly urbanized with more than 75% of the country living in urban area. Malaysia defines urban poverty as a lack of monetary ability to obtain basic needs, which are separated into food and non-food component, which measured by non-food and food in the poverty line income, which is known as PLI. The factor that have caused urban poverty in Malaysia is, firstly, is the migration of low-income group from rural area. Second is the low level of education. Third is the high cost of living, and lastly is unemployment.
Based on the Quranic verse, Muslims should find initiative to get away from poverty. The causes of poverty should be identified in order to come up with the effective solutions. Generally, the causes of poverty are poor education, high cost of living, political instability and self-conflict, limited sources of clean water and nutritious food, lack of support from the government, and inadequate infrastructure such as roads, communication, and transportation. There are 3 basic principles in Islamic framework in regulating human activities, which are Tawheed, Khalifah, and Adalah. Men are embedded with relation to the Creator, which is Allah. Apart from that, men are also interrelated with other humans and also the universe. Tawheed provides guidelines to human through divine revelations which refer to Al-Quran and Sunnah in order to create uniformity. Based on Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 30, Allah has appointed man as the vicegerent on the earth. Men should be able to allocate resources provided by Allah in a proper and right manner. Under this principle, it can be further discussed to 3 concepts. The first one is universal brotherhood, which promotes social equality. Second one is trusteeship of resources. Resources are trusteeship in nature. Benefits of resources have to be shared as it is for everyone. Lastly, simple lifestyle. Khalifah should have a simple life and avoid unnecessary and excessive things, as Allah do not prefer extravagance. Islam really emphasized justice value, as lots of Quranic verses highlighting about justice, and one of the Prophet's mission is eliminating injustice in the society.
Principles of brotherhood and trusteeship will implement mutual sharing in society, whereby Muslims is responsible in ensuring the basic needs of poor. In terms of justice, the society should have equal earning opportunities and equal distribution of wealth and income. Islam promotes efficiency that contribute to growth and equity, which channel the earnings to the one who are in need, such as by giving zakat and sedekah.
We all know zakat and sedekah have a difference between them. Everyone in this world, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, can give sedekah, but zakat is only for Muslim. And is it compulsory for them to pay zakat regardless of age, gender and wealth?
Firstly, giving sedekah and zakat can help needy people around the world to continue their life. This is because sedekah and zakat help these people in the form of money, whereby they can use it to buy food, clothes and shelter. Needy people include widow, orphan, disabled and the destitute. It can be seen that through sedekah and zakat, people can get benefit from it. In fact, giving sedekah and zakat can create the balance and benefit to all the society. Allah says, zakat therefore is unlike charity that is given to the needy voluntarily. Thus, whoever pays zakat, he is purifying his wealth, as zakat will separate the portion that belong to the poor. Zakat is not considered as a favor that is given to the poor by the rich, but it is the right of the poor to wealth of the rich. Secondly, as we all know, giving sedekah and zakat can avoid the rich people continuing to be rich and the poor people continuing to be poor. Due to this situation, the economy will have income inequality issues. The society can be divided into three groups, which are we all know as B4, M4 and T20. The rich people that have the capability should give sedekah and pay zakat for the needy people who mostly belong to the B4 group. Consequently, the income inequality issue can be solved and everyone can live happily. Thirdly, giving sedekah and zakat has already mentioned by Allah in the Al-Quran. Sedekah and zakat can open the gates of paradise for Muslim. Only those believers who were charitable and give zakat in the way of Allah to their parents, orphan, widow, the sick and the needy will be allowed to enter the paradise through Bab al-Sadaqah, one of the 8 gates of Jannah. Due to that, as we all know that Allah give privilege for those who like to give sedekah and zakat. Last but not least, as we all know, sedekah and zakat offer shade of the Day of Judgment. This is because on the Day of the Judgment, the burning sun will be right above our heads and everyone want to sit under the shade of Allah. The person who give hidden charity and zakat is one of the 7 who will be offered shade on the judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer's shade on the day of the resurrection will be his charity. From this, we all know that this is very important for a Muslim to perform their duty, which is giving zakat and sedekah, as it will help them in the hereafter.
Islam is a religion based on Al-Quran and As-Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and Quran mentions 61 times of the word earth to remind human beings as they have been appointed as vicegerents on earth in maintaining the peace and justice among all creatures of Allah. Global development nowadays has raised so many unprecedented crises that lead to the existence of the 2030 agenda by the United Nations at the end of the 2015 after facing failure of Millennium Development Goals. In line with current changes, the United Nations came up with 17 Sustainable Development Goals in line with 169 targets in addressing significant destruction to the ecosystem to achieve true meaning of prosperity and strong institutions. Let's do a brief recap about the history of development goals that have been started with unanimous agreement among member states to integrate from MDGs to a new blueprint of peace and justice for all levels of age. The Millennium Summit September 2000 has produced MDGs to address extreme poverty. In 2002, Johannesburg came up with a new declaration on sustainable development to introduce the paradigm implementation to combat the predicament of climate change and the failure of basic MDGs to curb the poverty issues adopted at the World Summit in South Africa. Over 11 years, the General Assembly finally triggered a new agreement on the SDGs that lead to the adopt the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals that consists of 17 SDGs. The United Nations Sustainable Development Summit at the end of 2015 with a pledge that no one will be left behind.
In line with efforts of the United Nations, established interdependent 17 SDGs, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation supports and welcomes the adoption of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals at OIC's 30th Islamic Summit. Malaysia is one of the member states of the OIC out of 57 member states that also committed to SDG as one of the OIC members in practicing culture and Islamic values to curb the poverty alleviation. Adoption of SDGs ought to provide example of the Islamic spiritual paradigm of sustainable development and act of vicegerents of the greatest sustainer.
Strategy in addressing the issue of poverty during the COVID-19 pandemic is, based on the Malaysia Economic Monitoring Report this year, the government has come up with some solution that can protect livelihood during the COVID-19 crisis period, which can help to curb poverty in this country. The solution was to provide the Prihatin package and the Pajana plan, which focused on the B40 and F40 series, which this package included social assistance, social insurance and labour market measure. Next, the government also reduced the contribution rate, which enabled FF member to reduce their contribution from 11 to 9% of wages from April to December 2020, and also allowing early withdrawal modality from FF account, which the FF member allowed to withdraw 500 ringgit per month from April 2020 to March 2021. Next, the government also have incentivized training, and the measure adopted for the people as a part of the initial support package included double tax deduction and expedition incurred on approved tourism-related training and etc.
Lots of programs organized to escape poverty in Malaysia either from government side or non-government organisation side because both play a crucial role in implementing their responsibility in eradicating poverty in Malaysia that is in line with the mission and vision of SDG that involve SDG 1 with 7 targets and SDG 2 with 8 targets, and both use 12 and 14 indicators.
The programs under the Eradicating the Poverty in Malaysia are housing programs, the agriculture program or well known as Azam Tani programs, socio-economic programs and feeding the homeless programs.
In conclusion, it is clear that contribution of sadaqah and zakat play an important role in eliminating poverty among the society. We can see that the idea of zakat is closely related to the idea of equality and justice that lies under the Islamic principle. Therefore, the paper has focused on several issues to discuss in order to alleviate the poverty crisis. The paper found the issues and causes that related to the current poverty that arise in Malaysia, especially after the occurrence of pandemic, affect all the household income. This kind of problem not only affect the individual but also contribute to economic recession as the unemployment rate is increased. Thus, Islam has various approaches to tackle poverty issue by providing effective solution through the obligation of zakat and encouraging sadaqah. It can assist people who are in need to have a better life and equal access to human rights. Hence, Muslims must remember that everything in this world is nothing but belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and should be utilized in the right manner. And the concept of sustainable and development, which are no poverty and zero hunger, have a positive relationship with the fourth pillar of Islam in order to end the society's poverty. Indonesia committed with SDGs in eradicating the poverty issue, as OIC has agreed that SDGs have multiple objectives as Sharia rulings adopted by United Nations. In achieving the mission and vision of the aim of life in line with SDGs, it is necessary to strengthen the policies and strategies in striving the SDG 1 and SDG 2, where people can enjoy the maximum equality of life.